Pardon me? Am I? Oh fuck! I'm not. Not even proper crashed. Just I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Uh, anyways, CI/CD. What's called now the magic of DevOps, and I probably should just open. Magic is out the window. So CI/CD is continuous integration, continuous delivery, or deployment, depending how you want to phrase it. The reason why it's delivery and deployment is because there are two types of things you want to have out of it, and I'll get to them in a little bit. So continuous integration is where you regularly test and merge into the main branch of your repository. All this assumes that you're using source control. So if you're not using source control, start doing it. But the regular testing and merging is key because when you do things in smaller chunks, it can be sometimes painful to merge. Like you have to change a single line to account for things changing, but generally the pain of that is not high. But if you have a 5,000 line merge commit, trying to get that to merge in is hell. So don't do that. So anyone contributing to Skynet will have seen the test and linter pipelines. Easy, you've seen that. Um, you've seen how the tests run and the linters run, and it just makes it so it can just work. Um, I'm going to the examples later. PowerPoint first. And it's easier, less painful to test more changes. CD is continuous delivery deployment. And it's automatically building either your final product or deploying it. And what you want out of something can vary depend on what the item is. For example, if you are creating a binary, then it would be building it and releasing it. So that's if I am gonna go and because I have a pretty good example of this. So robust. So years ago, I decided when I started doing Rust that I wanted to create one for Humble Bundle Trove. It's a nice amount. Now it works fairly well, but one of the key parts was automatically bundling binaries because I was just a random guy on the internet. Who the heck would trust me to not put malware into it? So it automatically builds the three types of binaries, the Raspberry Pi, the Windows, and the Linux, and then it releases them. And where are the releases? Let's go back to here. And then it releases it, and it is in releases, and you can see every element to download. Because they are bound automatically, folks can have more trust in them, knowing that they're not tampered with. For the Skynet stuff, because we want everything to be put onto the Skynet server, pipelines are run to actually deploy it onto it automatically. And one of the key parts is that it builds or deploys in a consistent, reliable manner, so that each one, is treated the exact same way. There's no every third one we sacrifice a goat on the blue moon. There's nothing like that. It's only consistency, which is why it's so damn good. So you've been using Git, right? I know at least two of you have. I'm not sure about you, Mars. And then I know that, easy. No, Milan's not here. Milan was SSHing into his Skynet account to load up his site, and yeah, and which is grand, which is why he was actually asking me how to do it in an automated way. But last week, last week you forgot to push your update. You forgot to log into a server and actually update it. Now it's Friday, and you have D&D this evening. So you quickly pull in the repo and run the installation script, and then you leave, thinking of your fair barbarian when they do next. Because everyone knows that fairies make the best barbarians in D&D. Though there may be a slight problem in that you were rushed so much by not having it out before and thinking of D&D that you actually forgot to run the tests. And this is the code that was put into the repo. Can anyone see what may go wrong in this? Anyone? Oh no, not sudo. You're removing the user directory of this person. But are you? Bash variables are case sensitive. And when there is an undefined variable, yep. And yeah, so when a bash variable is not available, it's blank. So that is, in essence, rm minus rf slash. Yes, it's that hands. No, it doesn't have to be sudo if you're running as root. Hey, I coded this up yesterday. I'm assuming that you're root because you're doing this manually, so of course you can have other poor practices, right? Not when you're root. Root best. Oh, Milan, we were just talking about you. So yeah, you know how you were SSHing to the uh, just read the slides. We'll come back to you. But basically, this code is what you just ran on your server. Congratulations! You wiped everything. Did you spot the typo? And what are the things that went wrong with that? So, what went wrong, folks? Okay, define everything. Yeah, you did lose everything, but what went wrong? Like, what's the root cause of the issues? Yeah, those. Yeah. This is what happens if you manually do stuff. You can forget to do things because humans are fallible. Robots are fantastic. So you forgot to deploy the previous release. That put you into a panic state, which was not that great. You forgot to do or skip the testing. And it will be Saturday before someone notices. Because remember, this is Friday evening as you're going out the door. It could be for shops you're doing things for, and those shops are only open from 9 to 5 all day, every day. So it'd be the Saturday, and then you'd be called in or paged or whatever they do now, and you'd be asked to fix it, and you'd be panicking, rushing, and then you find out that everything is gone. CI/CD can help dramatically with this because the testing is important. If it finds an error, the pipeline can stop. You've seen this, most of you, with the Skynet stuff. in that when you say your linting is not good, you need to fix it, because otherwise it's not going to be accepted. It's a small thing, and I pity anyone who doesn't have automatic linting, because that saves so many issues. Because some people like tabs, some people like spaces. The linter doesn't care. The linter wants what it wants. And it doesn't care about your personal preferences. And then there are some pipelines that have option to undo a bad deploy. We technically have that, though I haven't actually. It requires a bit more investment to set it up properly in our case. But it is possible for us to undo a bad deploy. And it's something that we'll be looking to in the future. And then CI/CD as a force multiplier. So it allows devs to deploy early and often, and it also helps them make them feel like they're making an impact, they're making a difference. There is almost nothing worse than committing a code and having to wait a week for it to be put into practice, because other people have to approve and it's got to go through a whole bureaucracy of people to sign off on it. And by that time, someone else can have their stuff merged in, and you've got to redo it to make it fit. And then that could be another week, and then it just goes on, and then you're feeling so down because every change, even if it's a single line, feels like it's taken a lifetime. So it can help devs dramatically in this. It gives ops folks, which is operations, more reliability. They know exactly how things are going to be deployed, because it's a set script every time, and it's gonna go into that and come out the same way. It's basically functional programming, essentially, if you want to look at it that way. Same inputs in, same inputs out. And then it handles tediousnesses. I've talked a minute ago about the linter, how it solves arguments, because it says, you're all wrong, do it my way. And that works quite fine as well. And it does require some more upfront investment to set up. You do have to create the pipelines, you do have to test them out and make sure they work, but once things are up and running, it's a massive time saver. Oh, and to go back, dev into ops is DevOps. It's where you start doing the combination, and that's also where you get a nice pay bump as well. Anyone got into computer science, so being able to put down that you do DevOps is good for your CV. But despite all the hassle in setting up, it's well worth it, because then you know things are working. Now, back in 2009, there were 4 admins for ComputerSoc. We had the web admin, database admin, mail admin, DNS admin, and then we had the general system administrators. Currently, web admin, mail, and those 2 are not really a thing anymore, because they're all in the NixOS repo. It can cut down on the amount of people needed for jobs. Database admin, that may be something slightly different in the future. We don't really have a database needed to manage. Every service that we install that needs a database kind of sets itself up on its own, and that's fine. That's kind of automated away as well, so that's not really an issue. And technically, there was also the security admin as well, but they were just called security. But I don't think that was really active for a while. I wonder why. System administrators, that's the entire group. Well, back in 2009, there were about 4 or more people doing that. They were each responsible for their own server. So the database had its own server, the DNS had its own server, the web stuff had multiple servers, the email had its own server, and they each had their own processes, commands, whatnot they had to do. And in some ways, they were kind of like arcane scrolls, like dusty scripts in the corner of a room that you had to know exactly where it was to find it. You can probably guess that this wasn't too ideal, because it meant that passing on the information was not that great. And now these scrolls are essentially codified and all in one location. Well, a good chunk of them are. If someone needs to do database stuff in the future, then that will probably have to be figured out separately. But the other stuff all together, all in one. You can probably see that much of what I'm saying kind of bleeds into the Nix OS one from before. That is one of the advantages of another kind of subtopic of infrastructure as code. Where your entire infrastructure is defined as code, which makes any dev people really, really happy, and also any sysadmins folks for large scale stuff also really, really happy, because they can do a lot more with less work, ideally. And use this time. So, any questions so far? Hans, easy, Milan. Great. So, so one of the links I pinged a little while ago was actually deploying these slides to NixOS. The pipeline for this is really simple. Actually, I am going to just show you briefly and then I'll get back to it. So on GitLab, there is this GitLab ci.yaml. I don't like the YAML parts, but it works well enough. And it's quite simple in this case. There's only one stage, and it is deploy. And it's deploying to NixOS. So all it basically is this pipeline calls another pipeline. You can have pipelines do that, and it's really fun to do, because you can do really powerful stuff. So this repo here, presentations, can deploy to NixOS without having any of the credentials stored in this repository itself. It just goes, hey, NixOS, can you update? Can you run this command? Can you just do stuff? And this variable is set, update flake. The other variable is package name, so comsoc public. That good for you as well? So, only the main branch. So if there's any other branches that are updated, or any merge requests, they don't get pushed out. So this entire segment here only gets updated on the main branch. It only runs in main. Yeah, I'll show you the NixOS one in a little while. But basically all this does is it triggers the NixOS one. And you can see that, boom. And so it deploys out to it. A more involved one would be the Discord bot. It's a lot longer YAML file here. Like there's 3 stages of lint, build, and deploy. It's using the latest Rust image, and it's caching a few files as well, many files. So the lint stage has 2 jobs in it. It has Clippy, and it has format. Clippy is a very nice Rust tool that tells you, oh yeah, your code runs as it is, but you can make it better, you know. which is always a good way to be. If you can make your code better, and you've got a tune that tells you how you can make it better, then it's good. And this, in this case, only, I think it runs on, can't remember exactly why this is run. There's a way to explain it out. And then the formatting just checks if the formatting is correct. I'll enter essentially, and then there's the burn stage. It has this part of the script of it just prints out the Rust version, prints out the cargo version, and then it goes cargo beyond, which is the beyond command for Rust. And then it has a small test at the end just to verify it all works. And so remember on the previous one it was only refs main. Well, GitLab has been moving over to a more runes based one of runes if commit tag. Don't ever do that. I think that's more if you have a tag, like, you know, git tags, it won't run then. But if any of these files change, any of the source files or any of the cargo files, so that would be cargo.toml or cargo.lock, it will run those. And then, yes, so the when part here is an important change compared to always. This when means that build will only ever run if format and Clippy pass. If any of the previous parts of the pipeline fail, then build will not run. That saves time and effort for everyone. Like, we've got to balance two things: A, computing power, and B, developer kind of experience of, you want the pipelines to run, but you don't want things to run when things are obviously going to fail. So limit that down. And then at the very final end, there is this again. You should recognize it. It's the NixOS deploy. So again, deploying after NixOS. We have a lot of the multi-pipeline stuff going on in all the Skynet stuff, because there is one repo that's responsible for deployment, and that's the NixOS one. And if you want to see the actual pipeline for this, go into the last one. So you can see that there's the Clippy and format, they run kind of in parallel in that stage, well, in series, and then there's the build, and then there's deploy. And you can see that there's 4 jobs that run in this, and you can see the stages and whatnot. Overall, quite nice. Things have to pass. A good example of things not working is this one here, where it passed Clippy but failed format, and then the build and NixOS didn't get triggered at all. You can actually manually deploy them, but considering this is way out of date, I'm not going to do that. And so that brings us to the final major pipeline, where almost all of them end up, and that is the NixOS one. You can probably see where this is going. This is the end point of other pipelines. They come in, they say, hey, I want you to run. And so this is a tad more complex. So, remember how, if I go back to presentations here. So presentations here set a variable and 2 variables, update flake and package name. These 2 variables were set, and they get passed down to the next pipeline. So here in the NixOS, we are expecting 2 variables. We have the update flake. So this job update flake will only ever run when the update flake variable is yes. Which is why you don't see it run every time if you look at the pipelines. So if I go to the pipelines here, yeah. So you can see that sometimes there are 3 in it, sometimes there are 4. But the 4 one is only ever if there's like the 3rd one before it. So if I go in here, the Discord bot updated, and so the update flake got run, and then the normal stuff here. Everyone kind of following there? Am I a bit too abstract? Hands, Milan, easy. You good for that as well? Great. So you can see the scripts that run specifically for this job. This is SSH key stuff. Then there is because this job is kind of special in the way that it commits to the repository itself. It self-updates the repository. So it has to have a email and username, and then it has to update the packet's name. So if I go back to here, the packet's name for presentations is ComSoc public. And this is where things gonna get a bit probably more all about the place, because if I go into the flake for NixOS, I will find the yes, ComSoc public is the name of one of the inputs, and you can see where it comes from. It comes from the kitlab.skynet comsoc/public presentations. So this script just tells NixOS to update that packet. You have to add the log file and then commit it. And then see the skip CI here? This is kind of important because without it, pipeline itself would run. So a good example is here. So you see here, this is the update. This is the one that updates the flake, right? See flake passed. And then because it committed to the pipeline, this one got created. And if this was left without the skip CI, it would have run it. It would have gone, hey, yeah, a new update, let's run it. Which is not that great. You lose a lot of, how will I put it? Granularity. Like, it could have been one option to just have the flake update here and then the second pipeline run, but you lose the history of it. Does that make sense here? Like, part of the goal of it was to have everything contained together. So if the flake update fails, you can see exactly where in the pipeline the rest of it fails. It's just pipeline stuff. It's a pain in the ass. And then you can see it's just pushing to the pipeline. This is purely hard-coded in the SSH path. Yeah. So that's just a single job, a big chunk of code that will run every single time. Yeah. Ask a pardon. Please don't die, Discord. Please don't die. No, it must be using an Intel GPU. Oh, AMD. I use AMD. 5700XT, so a good enough one. So yeah, I've got small comments here just to explain some parts of it, but it's pain in the ass. So then there are the other stages of test, deploy, and deploy GitLab. Test, as you can probably imagine, is the linter stage. I'm going to skip these and come back to it in a second. So linter is that, yeah, just that. That doesn't really make sense. Where is, oh yes, bold test. So linter is the format option. So this is where simple command that just runs, that checks is it formatted properly. And the reason how it fails is instead of editing the files, so easy, you've run the format before and you've noticed that it edits the files when you just do nix format, right? Well, the way you get it by anyway, the way you get it to just output an error is you do -- check. That just basically throws an error. You asked before about why I don't get it to update in pipeline, and it's because of this job up here. You saw how much effort this was to do. This is why I don't let the formatted run an update in pipeline, because it's just too much hassle overhead. So yeah, that's why that goes. And then the other one is test. And test is interesting because well, sorry, the beyond one. I tried it initially to build all of the items all at once, and it just failed. So I instead split it up by each individual group. So DNS is built first, active core, then active, ext, and GitLab. All these get built in pipeline. Whether or not they're used later, it's irrelevant. And then these are the deploy ones. So jobs are run based on where they are, A, in the stage, and B, in the text file. So all the test stuff will run before the deploy stuff, no matter where they are in the file. But if a deploy job is before another one in the file, then it will run before the other one. There are kind of exceptions to that if you have multiple runners to do the pipeline stuff, but for the current time we only have one runner because we're not really using it that much that qualifies for multiple runners. Maybe in the future. And so you can see that's a fairly simple command here. Chimera apply on to the DNS, and then you can see it's the same for the other ones. The one that is allowed to fail is the deploy external, which is the Skynet box itself. Skynet box currently is allowed to fail because it is disconnected from the rest of the items. Like, there's no SSH link between the two. You cannot SSH from Skynet to the rest of the boxes or vice versa. It's a good security measure, and we do need to talk to ITT to fix that, to be able to get the pipeline to work nicely. Because that's when the see the GitLab notification tab, pipeline pass rate warnings. I don't like that. We need to fix it, but that's a task for another day. And then the final one here is the GitLab one, and this will only ever be a manual deployment. Any idea of why you would not want this to be a automatic one? Not quite. It's more that for GitLab to update GitLab, you need to have multiple GitLabs that just update each other but not themselves. Because when you try to update a program, it stops the program and then restarts it later, and that won't work for us. So this is kind of here as a just a step to remind you to do it if needs be, but GitLab itself won't be updated automatically unless it's a non-GitLab update. So say for example you're updating one of the dependencies in it that's not GitLab, you can press this button and it will just work well enough. But you don't ever want to update GitLab itself automatically. You have to do this in your own terminal at home on your own computer. I'm probably not explaining that too well, but I don't know. I'm tired today, so these, as you probably noticed, are short enough. They only contain the commands you want to run, right? But what are these purple pink things? Well, say for example bundle. Where do we find bundle? Up here it is. Where is bundle? Yes, so bundle is here. This dot job, kind of like how you have dot files, is a job that will never run on its own, but we have tagged it as bundle, and so this part here, this config, will be added to any job that imports it like this. See our bundle? This means import the configuration from bundle, which is perfect. And you can see that bundle itself imports from the before script space, which basically puts in the latest commit, sets up a pile of things, and just makes sure that Comena is installed. It's stuff that would be in every job, so it's just making it a function essentially. And so that deployment needs both deploy and base, because when you're deploying something you need to have the SSH key, so that's why that's a tad different. And it also adds an extra rule of if it's in if the project namespace is ComSoc1 Skynet, and if it's on main essentially, commit branch is equal to the default branch. So this only runs on the Skynet repo in the main branch. That's what this rule is for. And of course, if these files change, I actually need to fix that up because there's actually one more thing to add to that. So any questions on that? Because that's probably the heaviest bit of the CI stuff. How is everyone else? I know Morris is a fucking genius with this stuff. Anyone? Thoughts? And then the final part would just be to look at the pipeline itself. Yeah, pipeline. So this is, as you can imagine, see the full deployment pipeline. Flake gets updated, things get burned, linted, deployed to the DNS servers. Those always get deployed first because you want to have the DNS records fully up to date and whatnot. And then it gets deployed to other ones in order. And then of course deploy GitLab is also there. But another thing is you can view things by stage, but you can see that deploy DNS is in the deploy stage. But if you look by job dependencies, you can see that deploy DNS is on its own. It will always run before the other deploys. And to make it a bit more visual, you can flick this tab and see that these depend on the DNS succeeding. Yeah, okay. And I think that's where I'm finished with that. I don't really have too much to add. It basically means that you can push to any of the repos that relate to the Skynet project, and it will automatically get bubbled up and update Skynet itself. So if you update the Discord bot, it's going to update Skynet. If you update the website, it's going to update Skynet. If you update anything connected to it, it's going to update Skynet. Even if you don't manually log in and do stuff. So, I know I've asked this so many times, but any questions, thoughts, whatnot? Anything that you want me to cover explicitly? Yeah, well, it doesn't have to depend. I have to go back a few, because it has been a little while before I have failed that. I need to find where the test failed. Yeah, you can see that there's a lot of pipelines to have run. So, yeah. So, build and linter failed and deploy DNS didn't run. Because one stage is essentially dependent on the previous stage, regardless. The main difference is that when you view by stage, DNS is in the same stage as the rest of the deploys, but the job dependencies is where it gets split out. So these jobs depend on DNS. You can see that it's directly linked there. So if the DNS fails, it will not try to update anything else, because DNS is one of the kind of core things for us, because it tells you where stuff is. And you need to know where stuff are to be able to update them. Like for example, the Nextcloud. Have I actually? Oh yeah. Next week we're hopefully getting Nextcloud whitelisted, and Nextcloud is like Google Drive, Docs, email, on that, but not Google. And so it works if you're on campus. I actually am gonna briefly just relocate to be on campus. We're using the single worst VPN client that I know of. Fuck. And this is why it makes it so bad. I hate this client. And it is... Yeah, I absolutely hate this client, because not only does it get me to put in my password, it also requires the code as well. And what's more, I cannot tick that don't last for 60 days. On Linux you can. I really need to update my password. Okay, so I may as well allow. So it basically, if I get access to files, a few of them are given access based on what groups I'm in. You can do new file, document, spreadsheet, presentation, blah blah blah. in future, next week, hopefully, I'll be able to do a poll of what time suits, what topic, day, etc., or a form, which is another option. Um, you might have seen it last week when I was doing the name, and then the mail is kind of burnt into it as well. Of it just works. You can see. Oh yeah, a lot of testing for me. Yeah, yeah, a lot of testing. But yeah, that will be kind of released next week formally because ITD have to improve the ports we opened for it. How did I get onto this tangent? Fuck. Oh yeah, and Mars just updated plans for capture flag apparently. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because it's the first time opening this browser. I went, oh yeah, new email a few days ago. um, so yeah, pipelines are kind of automatical. Oh yeah, now I know why I was talking about Nextcloud. So I originally had it on the server called Optimus, the game server, and the DNS was set up for that. It was pointing for Nextcloud to the same IP as the Optimus server, but now it got split out into its own server from KD called KD, and it had to be updated. So when you, it just keeps doing notifications there, and so it had to update the DNS before it updated the server. That's why the DNS is always first. Um, yeah, I finally got back in tangent. Uh, no more questions? Or did that spawn more? Mm. Milan, any text-based questions? Anything? Oh, Intermachine died. Huh. That's grand. Again, it's a very worthwhile thing to have, being able to automatically deploy stuff. And you know the example that I had way earlier on about the forgetting to deploy? Um, yeah, that happened to me. And that's what pushed me into seeing how it could be automated years and years ago. I think that was 2018 or so. It's also one of the reasons why I got to really love GitLab, because A, it had two things: private repositories and a fairly decent CI/CD program. Much of my code from then for the CI/CD still works flawlessly. And it just keeps pinging. Split 6 notification. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. Uh, so I'm probably gonna stop the stream for YouTube.